Okay, so you're here because you want to get smart, get knowledgeable, and fast.
And you want it thoroughly, right?
Exactly. So let's dive in. Today, we're tackling a subject that, well, might seem a bit out there at first, but it holds really fascinating keys to human behavior.
We're talking about the art of seduction.
Guided by Robert Greene's book, The Art of Seduction, it's quite provocative.
It really is. And look, it's way more than just a playbook for dating, though that's in there. Greene digs deep into what actually draws people together, how influence works.
The hidden dynamics, really.
Yeah, the unspoken stuff in how we interact is a
Oh.
pretty compelling way to look at it.
Totally. Think of it like getting a backstage pass to persuasion and power. Greene pulls in all these incredible historical figures.
Oh yeah, Cleopatra, Casanova.
Marilyn Monroe, even Andy Warhol, surprisingly.
Right, showing these seduction patterns aren't new. They're pretty timeless.
So our mission today, we want to pull out those key insights, those aha moments from now.
The stuff that makes you go, oh, okay, I see that now.
Exactly. But without, drowning you in endless historical detail, we want the essence.
And what's really interesting is Greene's angle. He says seduction isn't just tricks. It's deep down in your character, the persona you put out there.
He argues lots of people feel kind of stuck, right? Boxed in by society.
Precisely. And so they're really drawn to people who seem to invent themselves, who create their own magnetic identity.
Okay, let's unpack that. He starts with this idea of the dandy. Now, that's not just about fancy clothes, is it? It's deeper.
All much deeper. The dandy, for Greene, is all about resisting categories. They deliberately mess with their image, maybe blur masculine, feminine lines.
Creates a kind of shock value.
Yeah, startling magnetic effect. Think Beau Brummel, super minimalist but obsessively crafted.
Yeah.
Or Warhol's, the whole enigmatic, cool vibe.
So they represent a kind of freedom from the norm that people secretly find really appealing?
Exactly. That freedom is seductive.
So if the dandy pulls us in by being this intriguing puzzle, what's the absolute opposite?
That would be Greene's anti-seducer. These are the people who just repel.
How so?
It's usually sheer self-absorption. They're blind to other people, their needs, how they come across.
The person who just talks about themselves nonstop.
Totally. Or dismisses your view.
Yeah.
Utterly unaware of the bad vibe they create. Greene basically says, don't even bother engaging.
It really hammers home how crucial self-awareness is in any kind of interaction, doesn't it?
Absolutely fundamental.
Okay, so building on that, Greene lays out 9 specific seducer types. That's quite a few. Where should we start?
Let's kick off with the siren. This one's about almost overwhelming sexual energy. They create this huge, vivid fantasy for their target.
Like Tulia d'Aragona,
Yeah.
the Renaissance courtesan.
Yeah, Greene uses her as an example, cultivating this image like a Greek goddess.
It's all about crafting that intoxicating illusion, making yourself seem almost magical, like Baudelaire said.
Exactly. The siren uses their whole being, their body, their style to become this living fantasy. It's powerful.
Draws people in like moths to a flame.
But crucially, there's also an element of being slightly out of reach, right? Not too available. It's a dream you chase.
Keeps the fantasy alive.
Yeah, it taps into that desire to escape the ordinary, especially when life feels restricted. The siren offers this vision of pure, unrestrained sensuality.
Okay, intense. Next up, the rake. Sounds like pure, maybe dangerous desire.
That's the core of it, an insatiable appetite for the other sex, and that desire itself is contagious. It creates excitement.
A bit of danger mixed with pleasure.
Definitely. Greene points to Fronsac later, the Duc de Richelieu in Louis XIV's court. Apparently, his sheer boldness, his nerve, was incredibly attractive to the court ladies.
Boredom is a powerful motivator, I guess.
It seems so. And it's that thrill of the forbidden, too. Greene calls it the devilish component of the rake fantasy.
So the rake lets people vicariously explore their own wilder side.
Kind of, yeah. Tapping into those repressed desires for freedom. And weirdly, the more conquests a rake has, the more desirable they can seem.
Like being chosen by them validates your own attractiveness.
Something like that. It's a strange dynamic.
Okay, moving on. The ideal lover. This sounds tailored.
Very much so. The ideal lover is almost like an artist of romance. They figure out your secret wishes, your unmet desires, and then they basically become that fantasy.
Wow. They mold themselves into what you've always dreamed of.
Exactly. It's incredibly potent.
But that sounds so risky. What happens when the mask slips? When reality hits?
That's the huge danger. Any glimpse of their real, flawed self can shatter the whole illusion. Leads to massive disappointment, sometimes even disgust.
Like George Sand and Alfred de Musset in Venice. When things got real.
Perfect example.
Yeah.
Sickness,
Mm.
daily grind.
Yeah.
It killed the fantasy. So the ideal lover often has to maintain some distance, especially when reality starts biting. Keep the dream alive.
Fascinating. Okay, we've hit the siren, the rake, the ideal lover. Now the dandy, again, what makes them a specific type beyond just defying categories?
As a type, the dandy consciously uses that ambiguous image as a weapon. They master their look, often playing with androgyny, creating this striking allure.
Like Brummel's control or Warhol's cool detachment we mentioned.
Exactly. That coolness, that slight remove, just amps up the attraction. People are drawn to puzzles, things they can't quite figure out or own.
So they present this carefully built mystery that begs to be solved. Interesting. What about the natural? That sounds effortless.
It seems effortless. The natural taps into childlike qualities. Spontaneity, openness, sometimes innocence, or even a kind of charming
I'm
confusion.
Charlie Chaplin, that vulnerable quality.
Yeah, Greene calls that the innocent natural. It makes people want to protect and sympathize. But then there's another kind, like Cora Pearl. She was this famous courtesan, but her appeal was partly this spoiled, fiercely independent spirit, completely unapologetic. That was seductive too.
So it's either triggering protective instincts or being so authentically yourself, even if flawed, that it's mesmerizing.
You got it. Vulnerability disarms or raw authenticity fascinates.
Okay, next. The coquette. Sounds like they enjoy the game.
Oh, absolutely. The coquette is the master of keeping you off balance. Hot then cold. Interested then indifferent.
Creates uncertainty.
Totally. They have this core self-sufficiency, this cool detachment that's magnetic. Think Yang Kuei-fei with Emperor Ming Huang, switching between kindness and anger to keep him hooked.
Even sadness can be a tool.
Yeah, a calculated vulnerability or mystery can draw people in, make them want to understand or console. It's all about that push-pull, keeping the target always guessing, always striving.
Clever, if a bit exhausting. Then there's the charmer, the ultimate people person.
Pretty much. Charmers know how to please. They skillfully, subtly stroke your ego, your vanity, your self-esteem.
Making you feel good about yourself.
Exactly. Think Disraeli charming Queen Victoria with flattery. Or Pamela Harriman paying incredible attention to Avril Harriman's tiniest preferences.
It's about making the other person feel seen, understood, special.
And it could even involve seeming weak or deferential, like Zhu Enlai did with Chiang Kai-shek, disarming through apparent admiration or needing their approval.
I can definitely see that playing out in, like, office politics or sales pitches, too.
Absolutely. It's about making the other person feel important, understood, maybe even slightly superior.
Okay. Next, the charismatic. This feels different, more about raw presence.
It is. Charismatics have this unusual self-confidence, a magnetic pull, often linked to big moments, crises, heroism.
Aren't they Elvis on stage? That kind of energy?
Yes, that almost possessed quality. Or someone like Lennon, maybe not flashy, but he embodied that savior role for many.
And Malcolm X?
Greene calls him a deliverer, charismatic, fueled by the pain of oppression. It's a powerful, often deep-seated appeal.
Like they fulfill a need for leadership or rescue. Okay, last one. The star, built on mystique.
Completely. The star wraps themselves in mystery. They become a kind of blank screen for people to project onto.
Marlene Dietrich is the classic example, right?
Yeah.
Always enigmatic.
Perfect example.
Yeah.
Greene talks about introjection. The admirer basically absorbs the star's image, making it part of their own identity or fantasy life.
Because they stay a bit unreal, they keep that hold on the imagination.
Exactly. They never become too familiar, too mundane.
Wow. Okay, those 9 types cover a lot of ground, a really useful framework. Now, let's shift gears slightly. Beyond these types, what about the actual strategies they use, the tactics?
Right. Well, a huge one is creating the perfect illusion.
We touch on that with the ideal lover.
Yeah, but it's broader too. It's about tapping into someone's daydreams, their hidden desires, so skillfully that they start confusing the fantasy with reality.
Offering an escape from the everyday.
Exactly. Giving them a taste of something more exciting, more romantic, more them is powerful stuff.
What's another big strategy?
Isolating the victim. Sounds harsh, but it's about subtly pulling the target away from their usual world.
Their friends, family, routine.
It makes them more vulnerable, more dependent on the seducer. Creates a kind of bubble where the seducer's influence is much stronger.
Cut off from their usual support, they focus more on the new connection. Makes sense.
Then there's something Greene calls affecting a regression. This is deep psychological territory.
Okay.
It's about tapping into really early childhood feelings, often related to parents. The seducer subtly slips into that dynamic, that Oedipal triangle.
Triggering old patterns of need or desire.
Yeah, often unconsciously. People might transfer feelings onto the seducer without realizing why, but Greene warns you really need to understand the person's childhood for this to work. It's specific.
Playing with foundational emotional stuff. Okay, what about pushing boundaries?
That's the lure of the transgressive and taboo. People are often fascinated by breaking rules, exploring their dark side.
Lord Byron with his whole scandalous image.
Classic example. The forbidden is often exciting. Going against social norms holds a certain thrill.
Okay, so appealing to that rebellious streak. What else?
Using spiritual lures. This is about distracting from maybe more basic desires by focusing on the sublime, the transcendent.
Like talking about deep spiritual connection, art, the occult.
Right. It elevates things, makes the connection feel more profound, less purely physical. Natalie Barney used elements of this.
Makes the seduction seem like a meeting of souls, not just bodies.
Exactly. It adds a layer of mystique. Then, maybe counterintuitively, there's mixing pleasure with pain.
Wait, pain?
Greene argues being too nice is boring, maybe signals weakness, strategically causing a little emotional pain, guilt, insecurity, even temporary breakups followed by making up can heighten the emotional stakes.
Creates bigger highs because there were lows.
Precisely. That emotional roller coaster can create a really intense bond, even if it's not exactly healthy. The contrast makes the good times feel amazing.
Sounds manipulative, but I see the psychological angle. What about less dramatic tactics, more subtle?
Indirect communication is key for many seducers, making the target feel like they're the one pursuing.
The make them come to you idea.
Exactly. Be present, be friendly, gradually get closer like Lausanne did with the Grande Mademoiselle, or show interest, then pull back a bit.
Let their imagination do the work. Avoid seeming too eager.
Crucial. Give them space to want you. Don't crowd them. Let them feel it's their idea.
Okay, how about weakening their defenses directly?
That's where creating doubt and confusion comes in. Subtly unsettling someone's reality, making them question things.
Makes them less resistant, more open to suggestion.
Yeah, like in Les Liaisons Dangereuses between Valmont and Tourvel, if you destabilize their certainty, they're easier to influence.
Strategic confusion. What about just physical presence?
Oh, physical presence and allure are massive. Think Cleopatra's legendary impact. Or just the power of someone's voice, their scent.
Marilyn Monroe's walk.
Right. Greene emphasizes it's not just about looks, it's about consciously creating this heightened, captivating presence through how you move, carry yourself, everything.
A full sensory experience. You mentioned disarming tactics, too.
Yes. Disarming through strategic weakness and vulnerability. This is clever.
Appearing weak. How does that work?
By seeming vulnerable, maybe even overwhelmed by the target, your actions seem less calculated. They might feel superior, less suspicious.
Lowers their guard.
Exactly. Using tears, shyness, it can make them feel protective, sympathetic, which you can then steer elsewhere. It plays against the expectation of a strong pursuit.
Sneaky. What about creating atmosphere? Spectacle.
The mesmerizing effect of spectacle, yeah. Using details, grand gestures, sensory richness to create a mood.
Like Empress Susi's banquets or Genji's orchestration of details?
Perfect examples. It distracts, engages the senses, creates the desired feeling, while maybe masking the seducer's real intent. It's about crafting an enchanting experience.
And it sounds like the tiny details matter hugely there.
Absolutely. Paying attention to detail shows you care, you notice things. Pamela Harriman was famous for this, anticipating lovers' needs.
Makes the person feel deeply seen and understood.
Yes, almost like being cared for as a child again. It's very comforting, very disarming. Demonstrates you see them as an individual.
Okay, what about shaping your own image?
Poetic idealization. Crafting this larger-than-life, fantastical image that resonates with the target's dreams. Avoiding being just normal.
Like Eva Peron becoming Evita.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Embodying some powerful ideal or fantasy. Transcending the everyday.
And deliberately blurring reality.
Creating the uncanny. Playing with what's real and what's illusion. Creating mystery, maybe even a little unsettling wonder.
Like the Pay-Pew story or Warhol using an impersonator.
Yeah, that ambiguity keeps people hooked, fascinated, maybe a little on edge. It plays with perception.
You also mentioned mixing effects.
Right, combined effects, often the most powerful, like a Danny being physically alluring but emotionally cool. Or Byron having this romantic depth hidden under a disdainful surface.
Creates complexity, makes them harder to figure out, more intriguing.
Exactly. Keeps the target guessing.
What about using other people? Social dynamics.
Exploiting vanity and insecurity through triangles. Classic stuff.
Making them compete.
Basically, yeah. Making them feel they have rivals for your attention, real or imagined, ramps up their desire. Richelieu playing two women off each other is an example. Or even just paying attention to a sibling can work.
Taps into that competitive drive, fear of missing out. What about making them feel they need you?
That's creating the need. Subtly highlighting their lacks, their insecurities, making them feel empty in a way only you can fill.
Like Diotima said about Eros being born from contrivance and poverty.
Beautifully put.
Yeah.
Even criticism, like Lawrence gave Ivy Lowe, can create self-doubt and make them crave your approval. You position yourself as the answer to their hidden problems.
Clever. How do you get past conscious defenses, though, if someone's wary?
Subtle insinuation. Planting ideas so skillfully they seem to come from the target's own mind.
Like Inception.
Kind of. It takes patience, artistry, but it bypasses resistance because they think they have the insight, they feel the desire.
Whispering ideas into their subconscious? What about mirroring them?
Entering their spirit. Matching their moods, tastes, values. It builds rapport fast.
Makes them feel understood, validated.
Totally. People are drawn to reflections of themselves. It lowers defenses, creates a sense of connection. Ah, they get me.
Okay. And keeping some mystery alive.
Ambiguity. Don't reveal everything. Madame de Recamier's enigmatic vibe kept people fascinated. That unknown element keeps them hooked, wanting to know more.
Keeps them curious. How do you build credibility, though? Avoid seeming fake.
The soft sell. Making attention seem like news, not publicity. Orchestrate things so the media or gossip picks it up organically.
Like Andrew Jackson's campaigns, making it seem like a groundswell.
Exactly. It feels more authentic than blatant self-promotion, builds real buzz.
Okay. What if they still have doubts? How do you prove yourself?
Demonstrating proof. Actions speak louder than words. Acts of sacrifice, courage, things that show your commitment or character.
Like Canuville's grand gestures for Pauline Bonaparte, or D'Annunzio's war heroics.
Right. They powerfully showed their devotion or qualities, silencing doubts. It's tangible proof.
Showing, not just telling. Wow, we've covered so much. Any final key tactics we missed?
Just maybe briefly circling back the importance of delaying gratification to build tension, but also knowing when to finally make that bold move. Timing is key.
Don't wait too long. Don't rush it.
Exactly. And finally, the post-seduction phase. Greene stresses managing the inevitable cooling off, the disenchantment.
Keeping things from getting stale or messy.
Yeah, like Duke Ellington apparently managed his affairs, keeping an air of unique experience, not letting it become routine or ugly, maintaining influence long-term.
Okay. This deep dive into Greene's Art of Seduction has been, well, incredibly eye-opening.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
It's so clear that seductive power isn't just about looks or charm. It's this complex mix of understanding desires, insecurities, the power of illusion.
And using indirect influence, really reading people.
Absolutely. And while the book frames it as seduction, these principles are everywhere, aren't they?
Oh, definitely. Persuasion, influence, attraction, psychology in general. You see these dynamics in work, in friendships, everywhere. Understanding them is useful way beyond romance.
So for you listening right now, here's something to chew on. As we talk through these archetypes, these strategies, did any of them ring a bell?
Did you recognize parts of yourself, maybe? Or see these patterns playing out in people around you?
And thinking about that, how might understanding these dynamics change how you see your own interactions day to day?
It's fascinating stuff. If we've piqued your interest, definitely check out Robert Greene's book for the full experience.
For sure. Join us next time as we dive deep into another set of sources, bringing you that concentrated knowledge, fast and thorough, right here on The Deep Dive.